Hey everyone, I'm Karen Dubin. I am going to be continuing on in our reading of Carl Rogers on Becoming a Person. And we are in the section on some significant learnings. So that's where I'm going to continue from. So here we go. The next learning I want to state may be difficult to communicate. It is this. The more I am open to the realities in me and in the other person, the less do I find myself wishing to rush in to fix things. As I try to listen to myself and the experiences going on in me, and the more I try to extend the same listening attitude to another person, the more respect I feel for the complex processes of life. So I become less and less inclined to hurry in to fix things, to set goals, to mold people, to manipulate and push them in the way that I would like them to go. I am much more content simply to be myself and to let another person be himself. I know very well that this must seem like a strange, almost Oriental point of view. What is life if we are not going to do things to people? What is life for if we are not going to mold them to our progress? What is life for if we are not going to teach them the things that we think they should learn? What is life for if we are not going to make them think and feel as we do? How can anyone hold such an inactive point of view as the one I am expressing? I am sure that attitudes such as these must be a part of the reaction of many of you. Yet the paradoxical aspect of my experience is that the more I am simply willing to be myself in all this complexity of life, and the more I am willing to understand and accept the realities in myself and in the other person, the more change seems to be stirred up. It is a very paradoxical thing that to the degree that each one of us is willing to be himself, then he finds not only himself changing, but he finds that other people to whom he relates are also changing. At least this is a very vivid part of my experience and one of the deepest things I think I have learned in my professional and personal life. Let me now turn to some other learnings which are less concerned with relationships and have more to do with my own actions and values. The first of these is very brief. I can trust my experience. One of the basic things which I was a long time in realizing and which I'm still learning is that when an activity feels as though it is valuable or worth doing, it is worth doing. Put another way, I have learned that my total organistic sensing of a situation is more trustworthy than my intellect. All of my professional life, I have been going in directions which others thought were foolish, and about which I have had many doubts myself. But I have never regretted moving in directions which felt right, even though I have often felt lonely or foolish at the time. I have found that when I have trusted some inner non-intellectual sensing, I have discovered wisdom in the move. In fact, I have found that when I have followed one of these unconventional paths because I felt it were right or true, then in 5 or 10 years many of my colleagues have joined me, and I no longer need to feel alone in it. As I gradually come to trust my total reactions more deeply, I find that I can use them to guide my thinking. I have come to have more respect for those vague thoughts which occur in me from time to time, which feel as though they were significant. I am inclined to think that these unclear thoughts or hunches will lead me to important areas. I think of it as trusting the totality of my experience, which I have learned to suspect is wiser than my intellect. It is fallible, I am sure, but I believe it to be less fallible than any conscious mind alone. My attitude is very well expressed by Max Weber, the artist, when he says, I am carrying on my own humble creative effort. I depend greatly upon that which I do not yet know, and upon that which I have not yet done. Very closely related to this learning is a corollary that evaluation by others is not a guide for me. The judgments of others, while that they are to be listened to and taken into account for what they are, can never be a guide for me. This has been a hard thing to learn. I remember how shaken I was in the early days when a scholarly, thoughtful man who seemed to me a much more competent and knowledgeable psychologist than I told me what a mistake I was making by getting interested in psychotherapy. It could never lead anywhere, and as a psychologist, I would not even have the opportunity to practice it. In later years, it has sometimes jolted me a bit to learn that I am, in the eyes of some others, a fraud. A person practicing medicine without a license, the author of a very superficial and damaging sort of therapy, a power seeker, a mystic, etc. And I have been equally disturbed by equally extreme praise. But I have not been too much concerned because I have come to feel that only one person, at least in my lifetime and perhaps ever, can know whether what I am doing is honest, thorough, open, and sound, or false, defensive, and unsound. And I am that person. I am happy to get all sorts of evidence regarding what I am doing and criticism, both friendly and hostile, and praise, both sincere and fawning, are part of such evidence. But to weigh this evidence and to determine its meaning and usefulness is a task I cannot relinquish to anyone else. End of reading for today. I look forward to continuing on tomorrow as we continue with some additional learnings that we have for this section. So thank you all and have a wonderful rest of your Thursday.